What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best explosive shot mercenary build in Path of Exile 2. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in the description or the pinned comment. So this is an endgame build that is structured around using explosive shot, which will proc bunch of buffs like Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice and Herald of the Ash, which will all create massive explosions and give you the ability to clear entire screens of enemies in just a second or two. But as we will lack in single target damage, so for that reason we are going to be also using the shock burst rounds that will delete bosses insanely quickly. However, because of this we will now have to use the Tree Jagged Mask, which will now make our explosive shots contribute to the shock instead of ignite, and this will completely solve our low single target damage and make our build not only insane for AoV but also against tough bosses. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I'm going with the Mercenary and our Ascendancy is the Witch Hunter. Then for the first skill we have the explosive shot with the support gem like the scatter shot, conduction, martial tempo, fire penetration and the lightning exposure. Then second we get the shock burst rounds with the lightning infusion, concentrated effect, heft, primal armament and the fresh clip. Then next we get the emergency reload with premeditation, ingenuity and persistence. Next we have the sorcery ward with the fire mastery and the lightning infusion. Next we got the Herald of Ice with magnified effect, cold infusion, cold penetration and cold mastery. Next we got overwhelming presence with no support gems. Next we got Herald of the Thunder with innervate, lightning penetration, ice bite and glaciation. Then for some of the last ones we have the Herald of the Ash and Voltaic Mark, and for both of them we don't want to use any gems. And finally for the last one we got the Wind Dancer with the blind, maim and unbreakable. Most of this setup is structured around using our explosive shots to delete enemies in split seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we also have a leveling build in case if you are starting your journey from level 0 and you want to use it up until about level 25. So first off we have fragmentation rounds with the martial tempo. Then next we have the permafrost bolts with the pierce and ice bite. Next we got the flash grenade with a scatter shot and overpower. And finally we are using explosive grenade with a fast forward and fire infusion. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node and then go like this while getting these 4. So battle harden, feel no pain, remorseless and ricochet. Then from here we keep on moving while also taking this whole thing. Then next we now go to the right side and get these 2. So adrenaline rush and instant reload. Then afterwards we want to keep on going down while taking these 2. So emboldened avatar and the forces of nature. While also getting these 2 more, so flash storm and lightning rod. And then from here you want to get all of these here as well. And only from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority doesn't really matter that much. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to get 46 intelligence for our Tree Jagged Mask, and then for level 10 Herald of the Ice. Then afterwards we want to get about 180 to 200 dexterity, which is mainly meant for the shock burst rounds and the Falcon technique node. And then finally, when you have achieved both these milestones, then now you just want to spend the rest of our points into strength to get our life as much as possible. And then on top of this, a lot of our build is also improved by our specific jewels that we use. So for the top 3 options we have increased projectile damage, then increased shock duration, and lastly increased attack damage. Priority here won't really matter, so just equip whichever ones you get first. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock Pitiless Killer. This will instantly kill enemies if their life reaches a certain threshold. Then second we get the Judge, Jury and Executioner. This will now give us a Decimating Strike, which will remove between 5 to 30% of enemies' health before your first attack. Then next we get the Obsessive Ritual. This will add the sorcery ward to your skill, an elemental damage barrier at the cost of 50% less armor and evasion rating. This barrier will now absorb elemental damage and up to 30% of your armor and evasion rating, so this trade-off is 100% worth it. And then finally, we want to go with the Ceremonial Ablution, which will now buff the effect and recovery of our sorcery ward even further. So feel free to use this exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have also sub-passives, and their order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter. So this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. Then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally our breach setup. And next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Forlorn Crossbow. I chose this one because of one simple fact, which is that this is the highest DPS crossbow in the game. So then for bonus stats we also want to go with increased physical damage, adds physical damage to attacks, and loads an additional bolt, which is a huge buff, so try to prioritize this one for sure. Then for the helmet we have the Tree Dragon Mask, and as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the only required item for this build to work at 100%. So if you can find it, then just buy it, and believe me, it will be 100% worth it. And this mask will now make our explosive shots contribute to the shock instead of ignite, and this will completely solve our low single target damage. Then for the chest we have the Expert Serpent Scale Coat with evasion, and for more stats we got even more evasion, max life, and chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the utility belt with 20% faster flask recovery, and for more we got max life, more to charm slots, as well as cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Spin Bracers with evasion, and for more we want adds physical damage to attacks, max life, increased attack speed, and leech off physical attack damage as mana. Then for boots we're using the Expert Lizard Scale Boots with evasion, and for more we need increased movement speed, evasion, max life, as well as fire and cold resistance. Then for our first and second ring we got the same one called the Amethyst Ring with the chaos resistance. And for more we want adds physical damage to attacks, max life, and lightning resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Bloodstone Amulet with max life. And for more we got more to spirit, even more to max life, and fire resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have runes. During early item progression, most gear will be sacred with resistant runes. However, once your elemental resistances have been capped and resistant runes are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase your maximum life with body runes or consider sacting as soul core. So right now on my weapon and the rest of the gear I'm going with the iron rune. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. These are very incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the Taving Charm for freezing. Then second, get the Stone Charm for stuns, and then finally we want to go with the Amethyst Charm for chaos damage. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting, so feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will give you 2 rotations. So first up we have AoV farming, and for this one we simply want to spam our explosive shots. And almost for every content, these big AoE explosions should take care of the most enemies, as we have stacked the Herald of the Thunder, Herald of the Ice, and Herald of the Ash for massive buffs. And then for single targets, this time we want to start by applying our Voltaic Mark to increase our chance to shock and its effect. And then afterwards we use explosive shot until our target becomes shocked. Then when that happens, then now we use our shock burst rounds until they go on cooldown. And then afterwards use emergency reload for quick buffs, and then again keep on continuing spamming our shock burst rounds until the shock wears off, or if the enemy completely gets destroyed. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 most broken builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.